What is up, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls? It's your boy Goblin, and today I'm coming in with a banger of a video. I hope you guys enjoy this one. Drop a like if you do. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already, and also don't forget to check out the new merch drop available now at goblin420.com. Head on over there to check out all of our summer merch, from tank tops to new t-shirts to all sorts of new items. If you guys do end up copying some, please do DM me a receipt so I can show you some love. Thank you all so much for the support on the merch, and without further ado, let's dive into the video. Actually, there is further ado, let's take a quick moment for our friends at MyBookie. This video is brought to you guys by MyBookie. With 162 games in a baseball season, it can feel like a grind to watch, but you can put the excitement back into each game with MyBookie. Head over to MyBookie for run lines, money lines, and props galore, and claim your deposit bonus today just by signing up with code GOBLIN. They will meet your first deposit up to 1,000, so what are you waiting for? Just head over to MyBookie and good luck and have fun. Remember, sign up with code GOBLIN, and big thanks to MyBookie. So, this took place back in my good old high school days. Now, this took place in the first semester of my junior year, while I was still attending my main high school before I got kicked out of there and sent to the alternative one. Now, and at this particular point in my life, I was smoking a lot of weed, doing a fair bit of drugs, but I hadn't really started my super intense drug use yet. At this point in my life, I had only done Xanax, maybe a little bit of cough medicine, maybe like once at this point, and I was mainly still just a stoner, And at this point, I had a day where I'd gotten out of school and I went back to my house and I had a few of my friends over, which was a pretty normal occurrence. My mom worked every day of the week and she was a single parent, so I had a lot of time to myself at my house, which allowed me to have all the goons over. Now, this almost never ended well, right? Because I had so much freedom, I was just on demon time. I would do absolutely anything. So I invited my friends over on one particular day after school, and we're all chilling out, and we decided to make some edibles. Nothing that crazy, we just made a standard batch of edibles, but we decided we wanted to make them stronger. Now, we didn't have a ton of weed, we didn't have a lot of money to throw around, so instead of making them stronger, we just made a smaller batch, right? We just made a smaller tray of brownies. Luckily, my house was always the spot to cook edibles because my mom loved cooking and baking, so she always had all the supplies. I mean, she usually had the brownie mix even. Every kind of pan under the sun. I mean, seriously, it was the setup. So we opted, instead of just making a big old tray of brownies to make money, we wanted to make a small one to maybe make each brownie stronger, because we weren't planning on selling any of these. We just wanted edibles, right? So we made this batch of brownies, and like I said, it was a pretty standard evening. I mean, we were a little stoned, but no one was doing any crazy drugs or anything. The fun part of this story comes in the following day. So we made this batch of brownies and we chopped it up into pretty big chunks. I think we only ended up making like 6 brownies out of this. And granted, they weren't normal size. They were very large portions. But either way, it was still expected, at least, to be quite a lot stronger than any of the batches we'd made before because of how much smaller this batch was. We put a little over an ounce of flour into this, about an ounce and a half, I'd say, but it wasn't the greatest quality weed, and the method we used for the edibles was just the classic stovetop pan full of oil and some flour method, Coffee filters for the oil, bang. The easiest method, in my opinion. But either way, now that we're past that part, we had this batch of brownies completed, and I couldn't tell you the dosage, honestly. I have absolutely no idea. But these were probably some of the strongest, if not the strongest, edibles I ever made. I mean, I got to school the following day, and I ate one right before school. And you guys know that feeling where, like, you're not expecting to get high? I feel like I always underestimate the edible. I'll take an edible, I'll be sitting there, and I'll be, hey, this edible ain't shit, brother. 30 minutes later, I'm fucking cold sweating. I'm twitching. I feel like I'm on a rocket ship. That's how this shit felt. I ate my entire brownie, which was very big. It was more like a personal size brownie cake. It was very sizable, right? But I ate my whole brownie. And I'm sitting there and I go to school and my first period goes by, I'm totally sober. Second period, my geometry class. I'm sitting in this class and it hits me in the face. And mind you, I felt, very guilty about this because geometry, I loved my teacher. I felt bad showing up to her class zooted. So the only drugs I would do before her class usually was Adderall to try to, answer some questions and make her feel good about me being a student there. But, most of the time, if I'm being honest, I would break that rule. It was like one of those rules you don't really follow, but like, you in your head like to pretend you follow. I don't know. We're getting off track. Either way, so I'm sitting in this class and I'm blasted out of my fucking mind. I can't believe how high I am. Normally, even back in my high school days, edibles never got me like that. I have no idea what the dosage on these was, but oh my God, these got me sent. So I'm feeling fantastic, and I'm so stoned that even the kid sitting next to me, granted, he and I talked a lot. He knew I smoked and everything, so it's not like he just looked at me and was like, oh, you're high? He knew I came to class fucked up all the time, but he looked over and he's like, damn, dude, you look fucking baked. And I just started laughing my ass off. I was like, yeah, bro, I really do feel baked. I was so high, and I remember feeling so nice. And right after this class was my lunch period. I had a very early lunch, right? I'm talking like I had my lunch started at like 10 something a.m. It was kind of ridiculous, and it pissed me off a little bit that I had lunch that early because I remember I would go to the lunchroom at 10 a.m., eat my lunch, and then go hungry for the rest of the day. It was the worst. The kids who got it around like noon, they had it easy, bro. Third period lunch was the most brutal shit ever. I don't even know why that was a thing. But either way, I go to my lunch period immediately after math, and I'm sitting there, and most of my homies hadn't taken theirs yet, but a few of mine brought them to school, planning to take them throughout the day. I mentioned to my friends as I'm sitting at lunch that I ate my whole thing, and they're asking how I'm feeling, and I'm like, yo, I'm feeling fucking fantastic, dude. I feel great. So my friends, they're like, damn, I guess we should eat some too. So they all bust out their brownies at lunch. Not everyone who was there brought their portion, but, there was probably, I'd say, like 2 or 3 other people who brought theirs. Alec brought theirs. Bob even had his. I mean, we were feasting, right? So we're chilling at lunch for a little bit, and normally during the second half of our lunch period, we would go to the outside area and hang out a little bit. We would usually play hacky sack, which, granted, I was never very good at, but I was good enough to, play. I was good enough to stand in the circle. I wasn't making any crazy plays, and if I did, it was definitely on accident, but you know what? I was still good enough to stand in the circle. So we're out there playing hacky sack. A few other kids join in, and this dude who, what are we going to call this guy? Let's call him Gary. I don't think we've ever used that name. But either way, Gary joins in on the circle. Now, Gary's one of those kids who, he wasn't necessarily part of our friend group, at this point at least. This is actually kind of how he became a part of our friend group. He started sitting with us after this. Gary's a cool guy. I haven't talked to this guy in years, probably since I got transferred to the alternative school, but cool guy. Either way, back on topic here. So Gary comes over and he joins our hacky sack game, and we're chatting a little bit about getting stoned and stuff. We're talking about the brownies. He's like, oh, you guys have some weed brownies, Gary is, at this point at least, a very straight edge kid. Up until this point, he told us that he'd never smoked before, right? I already knew this about him. He'd never smoked. He'd never done any of that stuff. Very straight edge kid, but he was a funny guy and he liked to hang around us. So I always got the vibe that he wanted to do, he wanted to get fucked up with us. I always got the vibe. And I was like, dude, deep down, I always just felt it in me. I was like, dude, I want to see Gary get zooted. And that's exactly what happened on this day. You see, we're playing this hacky sack, and eventually we go back into the lunchroom towards the end of the lunch period. Our lunch periods were a good 45 minutes long, so we had quite a bit of time to just chill out. But we go back into the lunchroom, and Gary comes over with us, and he sees us go back to our table and eat a few more bites of our brownies. I already eaten my whole thing, but Alec ate some of his, Bob ate some of his, and he asked if he could try some. Now, I really wish I knew how many milligrams were in each of these brownies so I could tell you what we dosed this guy with. But what I know for certain is that it was far too much for his first experience. Now, this guy has never been stoned before. I personally would not give someone an edible as their first time getting high. But you know what? More power to Gary. Gary wanted to try it. He was very insistent on it. Originally, I suggested we give him like a very small piece, but Alec, of course, he wanted to give him a very liberal application of brownie. And by that I mean he gave him pretty much the entire rest of his brownie. He was like, yo, dude, you give me like fucking $5? You can have the rest of my brownie. Now, obviously, Alec had eaten a good portion of it to be willing to give it away that cheap, but also, I think Alec deep down didn't really care about the money and just kind of wanted to see Gary get zooted. So Gary throws him a 5, and off to the races we go. He eats the entire thing in front of us. I'm not talking like, oh, you know, he ate a couple bites. No, he didn't save that shit. He didn't wait. He didn't even hesitate. The moment the transaction was complete, this brownie was in Gary's mouth getting devoured, right? So he domes that fucking thing, and he didn't like the taste of it. We weren't very good at making our edibles, so obviously you could still taste the actual edible part in there, but he hated the taste. He was not a smoker, he was not accustomed to it. The dude gagged swallowing the brownie, but you know what? That's just how you know it's got some THC in there, baby. We got confirmation. Tastes like shit? Fuck yeah, it'll get you stoned. So, either way, he eats his brownie and, you know, our lunch period comes to an end and I don't think much of it. We kind of go our separate ways. But later on in the day, I end up seeing Gary again. Now, as most of you guys know, during my junior year especially, I skipped class very frequently. Very frequently. And normally, I would skip class towards the end of my day with a few exceptions. Today was one of those exceptions. I went into the bathroom after my 4th period, and Gary is in the same bathroom. This dude is not even using the restroom. He's just in that bitch, posted. And this guy looks like he's having a rough fucking time. I walk in, I'm like, Gary, like, are you good? He is sitting on the floor on top of his backpack with his face just in his hands, and he's running his fucking hair through his hands, and he's tweaking out. I mean, you can tell this guy is fucked up. He's like, dude, I don't feel good. Why do I feel like this? You know, like, this is fucked. He's sitting there, and I can tell clearly that he's very overwhelmed. He told me that he was dizzy, and he felt like he couldn't walk or anything, and I'm sitting there, and I'm like, damn, we might have let Gary go a little too overboard. So I mentioned to him, I was like, yo, why don't we wait for the passing period and then go chill in the library? And he liked that idea. He was like, yeah, I'm down for that. So we're sitting on the floor of the bathroom, and I'm smacking my vape, and I'm letting him hit my vape too, and we're trying to zero our hits. Now, luckily at this school, there wasn't, well, very rarely, there was ever teachers who would come in the bathroom and check. At my alternative school, I mean, they took the doors off the men's bathroom because kids were selling drugs in there. But at this school, this was too nice of a school for that kind of activity. They would never check on you in these bathrooms. So, I mean, honest to God, I think if I had the equipment, I probably could have cooked meth in one of the bathrooms and gotten away with it. I mean, it was pretty crazy. But either way, so I'm chilling with Gary, and finally, maybe 5 or 10 minutes go by, and the passing period comes, right? It's time for us to get on the move. The passing period comes, and we dip out of the bathroom pretty quickly before it starts getting flooded. Obviously, a few people were coming in here and there, but no one really gave a shit. But during the passing periods, the bathrooms fill up. So him and I walked over to the library. I helped him walk over, you know, keep his balance a little bit, and we went and sat in there for the entirety of the 5th period. Now, after that, he kind of just napped in the the library for most of the time. He was face down, and I just kind of sat there making sure that he was all right. Now, I tried to wake him up, but the guy wouldn't wake up. So eventually I just figured, fuck it, I'm gonna leave him to sleep, and I left and went to my 6th period, which was my gym class. Now, my gym class is where I would go to snort Adderall in the locker room with my friend Kyle, so I had to make it there. So I was the one with the Adderall script. I had to make it there. So, of course, I went over to my gym class and didn't think much of it. Now, the rest of the day at school was pretty tame until the following day after. You see, I got to school that day, and me and my friends, we had a particular meeting spot in the passing periods. It was right by the main entrance of the school. We would all go meet here and chill and catch up and talk between pretty much every class, you know? So I get to our little circle, and I am told pretty much immediately that Gary got popped, quote unquote, is what I was told. Now, what ended up happening, and now this is what I was told, I did not actually witness this, apparently Gary got up and went back to one of his classes or some shit, and I guess he was so out of it that the teacher caught onto it and sent him to the office. Now, at this point, I was intrigued. I didn't have Gary's phone number. I didn't have him on any social media. Gary is one of those kids who wasn't really on social media. So I'm not going to lie, I was getting pretty scared at first because I was concerned that he might have snitched, or not even, like, he might have been so high that he didn't even comprehend that he was giving out too much info, you know? I was getting pretty worried at this point. Now, I had gone through my first couple periods just chilling out, a little bit on edge, honestly just waiting to get pulled out of class. But that moment never happened, right? So the next day, I'm looking around for Gary at lunch, and I can't find Gary anywhere. He's not there. The whole school day, I go through, and I'm looking for Gary, and I can't find him. So I meet up with my friends again at the end of the day at that spot, and I'm like, yo, like, where's Gary? I've been trying to find him. I've been trying to ask about it. What they failed to mention to me that morning is Gary got suspended. This is according to Bob, right? Gary got suspended. I'm sitting there and I'm like, what the fuck happened, right? He's like, I don't really know that much. Gary just hit me up and said he got suspended. But we still had, none of us at this point had been called to the office or questioned or anything. So I'm sitting there and I'm like, yo, if Gary did not fold, this man is a real one. And he didn't. A couple days go by. I had to wait until the next week on Monday to see Gary back at school. The moment I saw this guy, I damn near wanted to hug him, dude. I saw him and I'm like, Gary, what's going on? And he gave me the full scoop. I guess he went to his next class, which Gary was a smart guy. He had an AP class where, to be fair, I'd imagine they're a lot more attentive. They probably pay attention to their classmates there. So no wonder he got popped. I took one AP class, AP Government. It was an absolute nightmare. Never again, right? But I guess he went to his class and was just so fucked up. He had some group activity, and obviously they noticed, right? When his teacher would come by, I guess his teacher noticed. That's how he put it to me, and he got sent out to the office. And, obviously when he got sent there, I guess they knew he was high and just sent his ass packing, right? I mean, granted, my school was full of fiends, so the staff was pretty trained. Even my non-alternative, like my main high school I went to, a lot of kids did drugs. That's just the Illinois way. There's nothing better to do. You do drugs or you go fuck yourself, right? Those are the two options you have as a high schooler in this state. So Gary held it down. This man did not snitch, and I couldn't believe it. This is actually how he started hanging out with us. After that, he started actually smoking, became a good buddy of ours, and attended quite a lot of our smoke sessions back in high school. That's just a fun little story I wanted to share about some edibles we made that might have been a little too strong. But hope you guys enjoyed this video. Drop a like if you did. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you guys in the next one. Peace out, gamers.